Hey everybody, I'm Dirty Dan and welcome back to Greasy Boy Customs. Today we're going to be talking about Junior, my personal project, my 31 kind of Ford Roadster. Let's dive in, talk a little bit about the background on this car, and then we'll get started into what's going to be going on with it. Now this Roadster's been with me for a couple years. If you look back through some of my previous videos, you'll see that we had little tidbits of this. Things like doing the interior sheet metal, the drive shaft, and also some fabrication parts on the steering and suspension. This car started off as a project with Village Customs Bernie Fest that he does every year. We got the frame built. We got the body assembled from the scraps we had laying around and together on the frame, engine and transmission mounted, and the axles mounted, which is a bulk of the work. Some of you are probably thinking, well, Dan, there's not much left to wire it up and make it run. Yeah, there's really not. It's a minimal car, but I have customer cars. I have family and friends and a day job and things going around the shop. My projects take the back seat, but we're finally getting back on it. We've decided to dedicate one night a week, instead of working on a customer car, to work on my personal project and get this buttoned up and out of here. All right, so for those of you who don't know what this car is, let me give you a quick rundown. We're gonna start at the back and work our way forward. Now, the frame was handmade. We drew it out on paper. We had Steadfast custom metal, cut out these side rails. We got it all welded together and we built the frame. The front of the frame, however, is part of a Model A frame. We've got the rear axle, transmission, and engine, all from a 63 Ford Fairlane 260 V8 automatic transmission. We've got a back wall off a 40s Ford truck, handmade seat backs, handmade sides on the car from scratch, Ford cowl from here forward, 31 Model A. Again, all the frame up here was rails were partially off a Model A, and then all the existing components were fabricated. The axle and the wishbones, I believe, are late 40s Ford. It's a really cool car. Yes, there are Ford Roadsters out there. Yes, people have built theirs from scratch, but they haven't built this one from scratch. This is my baby. We're getting ready to run the fuel lines on the Roadster, so we want to touch on fuel lines real quick. Now you have your different rubber lines. We're running 3/8. Most time when you look on these rubber lines, they'll tell you what PSI rating they are rated for. Being that this is carbureted, you know, you're under 10 PSI in most every setup. Most of them you're only running 2 or 3 PSI. You can use thicker hose, doesn't hurt. Now, as far as your hard line, it's up to you. Now you can run rubber all the way, but you run the risk of getting it damaged. Rubber's more susceptible to getting pinched, cut, snagged on stuff. The hard line looks a little bit cleaner too. Now there's a couple different options with hard line. I prefer to use this aluminum line that you buy in a roll. This is 3/8. It's very easy to bend by hand and make nice clean straight bends. You can also use metal line like brake line. A lot of people use a 3/8 brake line in place, and that works just fine. It's nice because you have flared connections and you can still have a nice strong line that is going to hold up and it's going to clamp nice to your frame. There's a reason we're using a combination of rubber and hard line. Now, the frame to the fuel tank and from the frame to the fuel pump, you want to make sure there's a little bit of flex and give because things are going to vibrate, things are going to move. If you ran a hard line straight from the frame to your engine, the engine's rocking and moving a little bit. Eventually, it's going to cause a crack and break your hard line. Now, as far as the fuel tank, you can get away with running a hard line to the fuel tank because you're going from the frame to a device that's mounted solid to the frame. We're going to do rubber anyway just because I like to. So we're going to go ahead and do this, and we're going to run the line. We're not going to secure it in place because you want to route it out and make sure it's going to work and going to clear before you start mounting it to the frame. The fuel line ran and secured and everything, went to go start it up. Fuel pump was garbage. Would not prime. We even tried pressurizing the tank. It just wouldn't pump. So we got a new pump, like $30 at the parts store, and it was in stock for a 63 Ford 260 V8, which was awesome. Thank you, O'Reilly's. And we got the fuel filter primed up. We got the carburetor, a little bit of fuel in it. Let's see how quick we can get it fired up. All right, we got the fuel pump on. Let's see if she'll run. Safety first. On the Roadster, we were working on making a cover speed blister type device to cover the hole we made down here for the master cylinder. Now let's dive in and take a little bit closer look at that. I'll explain to you what we ended up doing and what we started doing. So this is the hole we have. Now this is rough cut. We'll go back and trim this hole out all nice and pretty later, but this was just to get a rough idea. Now originally we were going to make a blister, which is a piece of flat sheet metal that you beat into shape, and it's a nice round cover that goes over it. It's really pretty, but that takes a lot of work. My arms got sore. They got tired. Also, I've never hand beat out a speed blister before, and I didn't know the limits of the metal and what you could really do with it, and I underestimated really what's involved. So we went with a different option. Ta-da! This thing is pretty simple. We just made a cone in the slip roller, and then we welded covers on both sides. Made it nice and fancy. Look at that. It'll go on like that. We're going to drill some holes right here on each side, and then we're going to put threaded inserts inside, and you'll be able to bolt this down and remove it when you want to. For those of you who don't know what nutserts or threaded inserts or riv nuts are, it's these. It's kind of like a rivet, but as you can see in there, there's threads, and it uses a tool that looks similar to a rivet gun. You drill the hole to the appropriate size for the selected thread, in this case, 1/4-20, and then we're going to screw it on here and press it in. I'll show you how that works. So again, you're going to take your tool and you're going to screw this onto here, like so. Pretty simple. You're going to insert it into the hole and you squeeze it, just like a rivet. Then you remove your tool. And there you go. Now you have a threaded insert for a 1/4-20. And you can just screw that in there and it pinches it on the inside just like a rivet would. There you go. It looks pretty good. I'm happy with the way it turned out. It fits the car's appearance, except for one important factor. It's shiny. The rest of this thing is rusty as shit. So we got to make it match. We have to make it look like it was supposed to be there. There's a couple ways you can do this. One way is to actually like spray paint it with different colors to make it look rusty, or the other way is like the natural rust that's on the car, take it and throw it in water and throw it outside for a couple days, which is exactly what we're going to do. Another important thing to do before we get too crazy with running this engine a bunch is to change this old oil out. I have no idea how long this engine has been sitting. I'm sure the oil is severely degraded and it just needs to be done anyway. We're probably going to change it again before we put it on the road because there's stuff that's going to come out, I'm sure. So we're using a 1040 motor oil. Use a brand of your choice. I like the O'Reilly's House brand. And I am a stickler about oil filters. Make sure you use a quality oil filter. I like the Motorcrafts, the famous FL1A that fits like everything. I also like the Wix filters a lot. So we're going to go ahead and drain the oil, get the oil filter changed, top it off, and then we'll be on our way. Other things we got knocked out on the Roadster would be the headlight mounts. Now you can see this headlight and this headlight, they do look a little bit different, but these were both originally still nice and shiny and pretty. I'll put a link to the previous video where I got these headlights and converted them to a modern halogen bulb. We did get the headlights mounted and we wanted to give them a little bit of a patina look. I'm not a huge fan of the fake patina thing, but it fits this car. If the rest of the car is rusty and you got these shiny chrome headlights, it looks kind of silly to me. So we wanted to make them look a little bit more authentic. We made a simple mount. It's literally just like a 1/2-inch diameter metal bar, solid metal bar, and just welded straight out. And then it has a round pipe on the end for a cup. And for those of you who've mounted Model A headlights, you know that there's just a bolt coming out of the bottom and you have a cup for it to rock on. So we've got that mounted. We also had to change our carburetor. Let me show you that. So we were running a stock Autolite carburetor on here, which there is nothing wrong with that. It's very similar to the one that would have came on this engine. Unfortunately, the carburetor had some issues. I had issues with the float hanging and sticking, and it really needs a full rebuild. And then when I opened it up, it was pretty rough inside, and sometimes they've just reached the end of their life. So to keep this still budget friendly, I ordered a carburetor off of Amazon. I've never done this before and I would not normally recommend something like this, but it was 90 bucks. That's it. And it works. It's got the correct bolt pattern. I'm not too thrilled about some things. I really don't like this accelerator pump setup, and it had these big heat shields around the electric choke. I wasn't a fan of that either, so we cut those off. You also have to pay attention to the gasket that comes with it. The base gasket on the original carburetor will not work with this one. You do have to use the gasket that comes with it. I'll put a link in the comments below for this carburetor if you're interested in it, but it works fine. It really does so far. We'll see how it does when we start going down the road. That's going to wrap it up on this rundown on the Roadster and where we are currently at on it. Again, remember, this is a personal project of mine, so this always takes a back seat to customer vehicles. Unfortunately, we are dedicating that one night a week to working on it, and hopefully we'll have it done very soon. There's really not much left to do. In the next video, we're going to get the taillight and license plate bracket mounted, and we're going to finish running the brake lines, and I'm going to show you the flaring tool that I use, and we're also going to go over different techniques in bending it. Now, I did also do a video segment series a while back, probably about a year ago, where we went over hot rod, rat rod brake systems. There are some really good tips and tricks in there. I'll try to post a link for that as well so you can check that out. Until next time, happy hot rodding.